right, class, we're going to really switch gears for a nice break and talk about something that is more related to culture here in the United States, and that is our graduation traditions. This is the time of year that this is a really big deal. This year it's so very different because of coronavirus, and many of the traditions are not going to happen in the way that they always happen. And so, you know, I'll be talking about things that aren't actually going to take place so much this year as they would in other times. I think many schools are doing some creative things to honor students this year in light of the fact that we can't hold large gatherings, which would be the typical thing that would happen. But I want to familiarize you with traditions and around graduation, and wish so much that I could hear about the traditions in your countries of origin, because I would love to know how we're alike and how we're different in this way. Certainly, graduations everywhere are cause for celebration. In the United States, we tend to make a pretty big deal about graduation, and some people would argue that we make too big of a deal about it. We spend way too much money, and we give way too much attention to students for doing what they're supposed to do anyway, and that is to study hard and be graduates of their various institutions. And some people would say, you know, we really don't need all of this big celebration that we do, because students are supposed to go to school, work hard, and graduate. Nevertheless, it is a big deal here in the United States. It all begins with planning, and that starts well before graduation time. Depending on whether you are a high school graduate or a college graduate, there would be some a little bit of difference in the planning, of course. And I will say, before I continue, I will say that even preschools have graduations in the United States. Kindergarten has graduation. Usually there's a graduation at 5th grade, from 5th grade to middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then there's an 8th grade graduation. These kinds of smaller step graduations have become quite popular, quite a big thing, and kind of elaborate, actually. And that was not the case when I was growing up. We didn't have graduations of, you know, those younger years. And I'm not really going to talk about those too much right now. But you, as parents of preschoolers and school-age children, will have graduation ceremonies, and they're fun and cute, and you know, your kids enjoy them. But they also do involve planning and money and things like that, and there's a lot of debate about whether we should have those ceremonies for those ages. But I'll focus mostly on high school and college, and the fact that the planning around graduation, of course, happens very early. First of all, the students have to meet all of the requirements, okay? So the students have the requirements for being able to graduate, and that's, you know, taking the right courses, the right number of credit hours, all of those things. And so students must start planning very early to be sure that they're going to graduate on time, on the schedule that they would want to graduate. Then, once graduation gets near in the late in the junior year and into the senior year of high school or college, and then of course with graduate degrees, depending on how many years someone is in a graduate program, but planning also there. The student and the family begin to plan for the actual event itself. And so there are things such as graduation photos that the family makes. These are usually photographic sessions with a professional photographer. The student decides where they want to have these photographs made. It could be a park. It could be an interesting area in downtown or a favorite place that the student likes to go. And the photographer will make a date with the family and will take these pictures and will charge a lot of money for these. Certainly some families do their own photography, but very, very commonly this photography is done by a professional. The school also makes a photograph of the students for the school yearbook. So photos happen kind of early ahead of time. The family needs to purchase the cap and gown. The cap and gown that the student will wear in the ceremony. And so that's purchased during the senior year, and that's another expense for the family. Also, in some instances, students purchase, or the families will purchase the class ring. Or other piece of jewelry. A class ring is a tradition that goes way, way back and was more popular in another time than it is now. It's a little bit less, popular now. There's more of a, particularly for the women, there's more of a tradition to a necklace or a bracelet or something like that. But still, families do purchase some sort of class jewelry that has the year engraved on it, maybe the school colors in the stone of the jewelry, that sort of thing. Another purchase that is quite big and must be done in advance are the printed invitations. These invitations are printed by an outside printing company. You can choose your own. You can design your own. You can put the student's picture on there. Certainly you will have the date of the ceremony, the time of the ceremony, the place, all of the information that someone would need to plan to attend that ceremony. And so those then are mailed out probably a month or 6 weeks before the ceremony so that people can put it on their calendars and make arrangements to attend. In our bigger schools now, because we have such huge numbers of students graduating, for instance, Johns Creek High School is a very, very large high school. Norcross High School is very, very large. It is hard to find a place sometimes that can accommodate all of the graduates and all of their family members, because some graduates want their grandparents and their aunts and their uncles and their cousins and everyone in the family to come. So now we find that schools are limiting the number that each student can actually invite, and they are issuing tickets. So a student might get 6 tickets, and those tickets would go to the family members or friends that are most important to them. All of the other people who might receive an invitation would actually receive something that is more of an announcement. So I'm going to use the word announcement here. Invitation, and I'll put or, okay? Invitation or announcement, because if you get an announcement, it's not inviting you to the ceremony. The announcement would say that this student has graduated or is going to graduate, and have their picture on there, maybe say where they're planning to go to university, or if they're going to go for their master's degree or whatever. And the idea behind the announcement is to let people know and give the recipient of the announcement the opportunity to give a gift to the graduate. So if you get an invitation or if you get an announcement, it is a tradition then to give a gift. Oftentimes a gift card with some money on it, or something that the student could use and enjoy. We'll talk a little bit more about gifts in a minute. So in planning, the student has to meet the requirements. They have a photo session. They purchase their cap and their gown. They purchase, if they so choose, they purchase class ring or class jewelry. They purchase and address and mail invitations and announcements. And other than those things, the planning will usually involve a rehearsal as the time gets very close. Okay, the week before, there will be a rehearsal. And then there's planning that involves parties and celebrations, and we'll talk about that down here, okay? So that, I think, is kind of the most important information there around planning. The ceremonies that are held there are a couple of very traditional ones, okay? One is the graduation ceremony itself, and another word for that is the convocation, okay? Convocation, that's the graduation ceremony. And it's often held at an arena, a large auditorium. Sometimes it will be held at a church, particularly if it's a private school or a church-based school, then it will be held in the church sanctuary. Sometimes they're held outdoors in a stadium, which is always a little bit uncertain because of weather, but that is commonly done. There's another ceremony that is also a part of graduation, and it's called a baccalaureate. Laureate. Baccalaureate. I think I've spelled that right. It's a hard one to spell, and it's a hard one to say. Baccalaureate. The baccalaureate is oftentimes a little bit more of a it can often be sort of faith-based, okay? There's very often a religious aspect to it. Prayers for the future of the students and so forth. And it will have an aspect of honoring students for a variety of things, not just grades. But students will be honored for lots of different contributions that they have made or accomplishments that they have made during high school. Whereas in the convocation, the large graduation ceremony, the students who actually are specifically named related to honors are only the highest honor recipients. The highest honor recipients are the students who graduate the summa cum laude, C-U-M, I'm sorry, would be your very highest academic student, okay? Sometimes there can be several students who tie for summa cum laude, but they have the highest grade point average. Then you have magna cum laude, and these are the students who have very notable high grades, okay? And then you have students who graduate with honors, and that means that they may have very strong grades, or they are recognized for honors in certain fields of study in their programs. So these students would be particularly named in the ceremony. In the graduation ceremony, you will have usually either music that is played through the intercom system that is recorded music, or you may have live music. You may have someone who sings a solo, or a choir that sings an anthem of some sort, a musical piece. You will have the Pledge of Allegiance, and you will have the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem. And you will have usually a prayer. It will be an ecumenical prayer. That means that it would be for all different kinds of faith backgrounds, so a very general prayer. And of course, you will have speeches. You will have speeches by oftentimes your class president, or the summa cum laude student may offer a speech. The principal of the school or the president of the university may have a speech. A graduation ceremony can last for a couple of hours. Each student will, of course, cross the stage and receive their diploma. And the students are most of the time now called by name, but it's very quick. Somebody is just reading names. And unless it's one of these students, they get a little more attention. They're usually named separately. The program, the written program that you have, will also usually list all of the students. Another thing that might be mentioned in the program will be where the student is going to university, or if the student is graduating university and going to work on a master's or a PhD, then it may say that they are going to continue their education, and it will give the name of the university. So both of these ceremonies happen within usually the same week, and Both of them involve invitations. If you are, if somebody wants you to attend, you will get an invitation, or you may get the announcement that just simply says, this happened and this student graduated. And then the celebrations, I see we're almost out of time on this video, so I'll go fast. Celebrations, this is where we've gone crazy, okay, as a society. We have parties, we have picnics, we have trips. Students take trips, sometimes with their fellow students, sometimes with their families. Gifts, it can become quite elaborate. Students will receive personal gifts, monetary gifts, so forth. If the student has been accepted and is moving on to university, there will be a lot of excitement around that university, and so the student might get t-shirts for that university, or banners, or various things that they might use in their dormitory at the university when they go there to live. So the the celebrations become a very, very big part of the traditions for families. Families spend enormous amounts of money on these celebrations. And along with that, you may start seeing, and you already have seen if you've driven around, large signs at many neighborhoods that list the graduates for that neighborhood. You might see billboards that people have done with names of students who are graduating. So we do make a very big deal about all of this in the United States, and it's coming your way if you have children, or if you have nieces or nephews or friends. Sooner or later you will be invited to attend a graduation, and I hope that you enjoy it and find it an interesting experience. But just know that that it also comes with a pretty big dollar sign, and it is, however, a wonderful thing to celebrate, to see students moving forward in their educations and their careers. So thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Have a good day.